The wind blew across the broken colony like a ghost. Dust covered the empty streets, and the sky was gray with smoke from the old mines. Nothing grew here anymore. No fruit, no grain, no green fields. Only hunger lived on this world now. Among the ruins walked a thin alien woman. Her skin was pale from sickness, her eyes sunken from days without food. In her arms, she carried a small child wrapped in cloth. The child coughed weakly, every breath sounding like the last. She had nothing left. No food, no medicine, no strength. She had already sold everything, her tools, her clothes, even the roof above her head. All that remained was her child, and she had promised herself, no matter what, she would keep the little one alive. The whispers in the marketplace spoke of only one hope. A human, a buyer, someone who paid not in coins but in bread, water, and medicine. But everyone also whispered the same warning: humans buy slaves, no one comes back. Still, the woman's heart was heavy with only one choice. If she died, her child would die too. But if she sold herself, maybe, just maybe, her little one would live. She walked to the square where the buyer was said to be waiting. Her legs shook with each step. Every shadow felt like a pair of watching eyes. Aliens stood around her, some pitying, some sneering. They all knew why she had come. The human stood there, tall and silent. His clothes were plain, not rich or royal. His face was hard to read, his eyes calm and cold. He did not smile, but he did not sneer either. He simply looked at her as if waiting. The woman swallowed hard. Her voice trembled as she spoke. I have come to sell myself. Please, save my child." The crowd went quiet. Some gasped, some turned away. To sell oneself was shame. To give one's body and freedom was worse than death. But the woman bowed her head. Pride could not fill her child's stomach. Pride could not heal fever. The human stepped forward. He did not speak at first. He looked at the child in her arms, small and weak, with eyes half closed from sickness. Then he looked back at her. "How much?" he asked in a low voice. The alien master of the market came forward. "A life for a life, human. Pay with food, pay with medicine. That is the price." The human did not argue. He pulled out a small pack. From it, he laid down bread, a jar of clean water, and 2 vials of medicine. The smell of food drifted into the air, and the starving crowd gasped. The woman's hands shook as she reached out for the medicine. Tears filled her eyes. She pressed the vials to her chest, then quickly gave them to the trader, who sent a runner to deliver them to her child at once. Her heart raced. It was done. Her freedom was gone. Her life was sold, but her child would live. The trader nodded to the human. "She is yours now." The woman lowered her head, waiting for chains, waiting for commands. She had heard the stories. Humans were strong, ruthless, and cruel. She would be nothing more than property now. But the chain never came. Instead, the human simply said, "Come." His voice was steady, not harsh. He turned and began to walk away from the market. She followed slowly, every step feeling heavier than the last. Around them, the whispers grew louder. "She will never return. He bought her like cattle. Humans are monsters." Her heart sank, but she did not cry. She had made her choice. As they left the square, the world grew quiet. She dared to look up at the human's back. His stride was steady, not rushed, not cruel. He carried no whip, no chains. But she could not trust appearances. Many buyers smiled before the pain began. The child's face appeared in her mind. She imagined the fever breaking, the cough fading. That thought was the only light in her heart. "Ow," she whispered to herself. "Survive, my child, even if I cannot." The human glanced back at her as if he heard. His eyes met hers for a brief moment. She quickly looked away. Her stomach tight with fear. What did he want? Why did he not chain her? The walk felt endless. Every corner of the ruined colony looked darker than before. The woman's breath was shallow, her body weak. She wondered if she would even live long enough to serve him. Finally, the human stopped. He turned to her. For the first time, he spoke directly to her. "You are not mine," he said softly. The words struck her like lightning. She froze, her eyes wide. Not his? What did he mean? Had she heard wrong? But before she could ask, he turned again and kept walking. Her heart pounded with confusion. Fear and hope twisted together inside her. She had sold herself. She belonged to him. And yet, his words were something she did not understand. She followed him, every step now burning with questions. And deep in her heart, she wondered, had she sold her life to a monster or to something far more dangerous, a human with kindness? The woman followed the human through the broken streets, her feet dragged against the stones, her body weak with hunger, but fear kept her moving. She had heard many stories about humans, but none of them were clear. Some said they were cruel masters who worked slaves to death. Others whispered that they were strange, different from any race, that their hearts were impossible to read. Now walking behind him, she saw it with her own eyes. He was not like the alien lord she had known. He carried no whip. He shouted no commands. He did not even look back to see if she was still following. He simply walked, calm and steady, as if the ruined colony was his own road. Her mind raced with questions. Why no chains? Why no guards? What does he want from me? The human finally stopped at a small transport shuttle hidden in the shadow of an old warehouse. It was not a ship of war, not even a rich man's vessel. It looked simple, worn, but well cared for. Opened the hatch and stepped inside. Without looking back, he said, "Enter." The woman's heart trembled. She clutched her arms around herself and slowly stepped inside. She expected darkness, cages, iron bars, but the inside was nothing like that. It was clean. The floor was swept. The air smelled of metal and soap, not filth. There was light, soft and warm. A table with food sat in the corner. Real food, steaming and fresh. Bread, soup, even fruit. Her eyes widened. She had not seen such food in years. Her stomach growled loud, but she quickly lowered her head in shame. She was a slave now. Slaves were not fed until their master ordered. The human closed the hatch. He walked past her without a word and sat at the table. He broke a piece of bread and ate slowly, calm, as if she wasn't even there. Her hands shook. The smell of soup filled her nose, making her dizzy. She thought she might faint, but she dared not touch it. Minutes passed in silence. Only the sound of him eating filled the room. Finally, he pushed the bowl across the table, toward her. "Eat," he said. Her breath caught. She looked at him, then at the bowl. Was this a trick? Would he strike her if she obeyed? Still, her body was too weak. She picked up the spoon with trembling fingers and tasted the soup. It was hot. It was rich. It was the best thing she had tasted in years. Tears filled her eyes as she swallowed. She ate quickly, almost like an animal, afraid it might vanish before she could finish. But the human said nothing. He simply watched, his face unreadable. When the bowl was empty, she lowered her head again, ashamed of how greedily she had eaten. She whispered, "Thank you, master." The human's brow moved slightly, almost like a frown. He leaned forward and said in a steady voice, "I am not your master." Her heart skipped. His words made no sense. She had been sold. She had given herself away. How could he say such a thing? She dared to lift her eyes. His gaze was firm, but not cruel. It was like stone, solid, unshaken. "You are safe here," he said. "You will rest. Your child will live." The word struck her deeper than any whip. Safe? Rest? Those were lies in her world. She had never known such things. Her lips parted, but no words came. She wanted to ask why, but fear stopped her. If she asked, maybe the kindness would end. The human stood. He walked to a small chamber and brought out a blanket. He placed it on a narrow bed in the corner. "Sleep," he said. She looked at the bed, then at him. A bed for her? No chains, no floor of stone? Suspicion burned in her chest. What did he truly want? What price would he demand later? She lay down slowly, her body shaking. The blanket was soft, warmer than she had ever known. She expected him to join her, to take what buyers always took. But he turned away. He sat back at the table, reading from a small device, silent, giving her no command. She stared at him from the bed. Her mind was a storm. Who was this man? Why was he different? The hours passed. Her body grew heavy with exhaustion. She clutched the blanket tight, whispering to herself, "For my child, for my child." At last, sleep claimed her. The human did not move. He kept watch, quiet as if guarding her dreams. When dawn came, the woman woke with a start. For a moment, she thought it had been a dream. She had not been beaten. She had not been chained. She had eaten and she had slept. Then she saw him still sitting at the table, awake, as if he had not rested at all. His eyes met hers. "Your child is alive," he said simply. Her heart stopped. She sat up quickly. "Alive? You mean?" He nodded once. "The medicine worked. Your child is safe." Tears burst from her eyes. Her hands covered her face as sobs shook her body. She had sold herself to save her child, and it had worked. But she could not understand the rest. Why had he given her food? Why had he given her a bed? Why had he not touched her? Rough her tears, she looked at him again. He was watching her, calm, unreadable. And in that moment, the fear inside her began to change. It did not vanish, but it twisted into something new. Curiosity. For the first time, she wondered, what if this human is not my master at all, but something else entirely? The alien woman woke again the next day. At first, she thought she was still dreaming. The blanket was soft, the air was clean, her stomach was not empty. She blinked and sat up slowly, her mind confused. Her whole life before this had been chains, hunger, and fear. But here, she had slept without pain. She had eaten real food, and the human had not touched her, not once. She turned her head. He was there again, sitting at the table, quiet and calm, as if he had been watching over her all night. His eyes were sharp, but not cruel. He nodded once when she woke. "Come," he said simply. Her legs trembled as she stood. She followed him out of the shuttle and into the streets. The morning sun lit the broken colony in pale light. The ruins looked the same, but for the first time she felt something strange in her chest. It was not hope. It was not trust. It was confusion. The human walked steadily, carrying a small pack. He did not chain her, did not push her. He acted as if she was free to run, but she knew better. Where could she run? Her child was alive only because of him. Without him, the child would die. They reached the edge of the marketplace. Whispers followed them again. There she is, the one the human bought. She will vanish soon like all the others. Her face burned with shame. She pulled her hood low, but the human did not react. He walked forward with the same calm steps, ignoring every voice. They entered a small supply shop. The keeper, a thin alien with nervous eyes, looked at the human with fear. "What do you want?" The human spoke, plainly. "Clothes. For her." The woman froze. Clothes? For her? Slaves were not given new things. Slaves were stripped, not dressed. The keeper brought out plain but strong fabric. The human picked one and paid without argument. Then he turned to her. "Wear this." Her hands shook as she held the clothes. They were simple, yes, but they were hers. She whispered, I don't understand." The human's eyes met hers. "You will," he said. Back at the shuttle, she changed. The fabric was rough but warm. When she looked at herself, she almost cried. For the first time in years, she did not look like a beggar or a slave or a ghost. But questions filled her heart. Why give her food? Why give her a bed? Why give her clothes? She studied him when he was not looking. His face was calm, but his eyes seemed old, carrying stories she could not read. Who was he really? A traitor? A soldier? A wanderer? That night, he cooked again. More bread, more soup. He ate first, then pushed the bowl toward her. She ate slowly this time, trying not to seem greedy. He said nothing, just watched. Finally, she asked, her voice soft, "Why are you doing this?" His reply was simple, "Because you need it." Her heart tightened. No master had ever spoken like that. Masters gave because they owned. Masters gave because they wanted something back. But his voice carried no demand. She pressed further. "Then what do you want from me?" He paused, looking at her. His answer came like stone. "Nothing." She almost laughed, but the sound stuck in her throat. Nothing? Nobody gave without wanting. Nobody risked for strangers. It was impossible. And yet here she was. Days passed like this. She ate. She slept. She wore clean clothes. Each morning he would leave the shuttle for a few hours, returning with supplies. Sometimes he gave her books written in simple words, telling her, "Learn." She read slowly, tracing each line with her finger. The letters felt strange, but something in his voice when he handed her the books made her try. At night, when she pretended to sleep, she summed. At times watched him. He would sit alone, staring at a small picture in his hand. His face softened when he looked at it, almost like pain lived inside him. But when she asked about it, he would only shake his head. Not yet. One evening, a sound came at the door. A knock, sharp, angry. The woman's heart froze. She hid behind the table as voices shouted from outside. "Human, we know what you took. Bring her out." The human stood, his body tall and steady, his eyes narrowed, but his voice was calm. "Leave." The voices grew louder. "She was not yours to buy. You broke the law of the market." Her chest tightened with fear. She clutched her clothes, shaking. Would he hand her over now? Was this the truth she had been waiting for? But the human stepped forward. He opened the hatch just enough to speak, his voice low but hard as steel. "She is not your property. She is not mine either. Touch her, and you will regret it." The silence that followed was heavy. Then the voices cursed and faded into the night. The woman's eyes were wide with shock. He had stood against them, for her, not to claim her, not to own her, but to protect her. Her lips trembled. She whispered, almost too soft to hear, "Why?" He turned to her, his face unreadable. "Because no one deserves chains." The words sank deep into her soul. For the first time in her life, she felt something that frightened her more than fear itself. She felt the beginning of trust. The nights grew longer, but inside the shuttle, the alien woman felt something she had not felt in years: warmth. She ate, she slept, she learned to read small words. The human gave her no chains, no orders, no cruelty, and yet fear never left her. Deep inside, she told herself, he must want something. No one gives without taking. One evening, as she folded the new clothes he had given her, the human spoke in his steady voice. "Tomorrow, we'll bring someone." She froze. Someone? Her heart raced. What if it was another buyer? What if he planned to trade her away? But his face gave no clue. He said nothing more, only returned to reading the small device in his hand. That night, she could not sleep. Her mind chased endless thoughts. Who was coming? What would they do to her? And why did the human's calm voice feel more dangerous than threats? The next morning, he told her to stay inside the shuttle. His words were simple, but his eyes held something deeper, something she could not read. Hours passed. She sat in silence, her hands shaking, waiting for screams, waiting for chains. Every sound outside made her flinch. Then the hatch opened. The human entered first. Behind him came a figure small and fragile, wrapped in cloth. Her breath caught. Her child. For a moment she could not move. She thought her eyes were tricking her, but then the little one looked up, weak but alive, and whispered, "Mother." She dropped to her knees, her arms outstretched, and gathered the child into her chest. Tears poured from her eyes as she held the small body, warm and breathing, against her heart. She kissed the child's forehead again and again, unable to believe. My child, you live." Her voice broke. The human stood silent, watching. Finally, she looked up at him, her face wet with tears. You brought..." Her voice failed her. He nodded once. A mother should not be separated from her child. The words struck her like thunder. For so long, life had been nothing but cruelty and loss. Yet here was this man, this human, giving her back what no price in the galaxy could match. Her heart twisted. Fear and hope battled inside her. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this?" He did not answer at once. He only crouched, placing a small pouch of medicine beside the child. His eyes were calm, but there was something hidden, something heavy, as if he carried his own secret pain. "Because a child deserves a mother," he said at last. That night, for the first time in years, he slept with her child beside her. The little one's breathing was weak but steady. She touched the small fingers, feeling life pulse through them. She had sold herself, yes, but this gift was beyond any trade. Still, the questions tormented her. What was he planning? Why did he keep helping? Was this some cruel trick to make her trust him before the chains closed in? The next morning, she found him repairing a small tool at the table. Her child slept nearby. She stood watching, fear and gratitude twisting together inside her. Finally, she asked, her voice trembling, "Do you have children?" His hand stopped for a moment. His eyes darkened, but he said nothing. Then he set the tool down and answered, "I had." Her breath stilled. The weight in his voice was heavy, like stones dropped into deep water. She wanted to ask more, but the silence told her enough. The picture he stared at some nights, the sadness in his eyes. Now she understood a little. He had lost someone too. The days that followed were different. Her child began to heal slowly, strength returning with each dose of medicine. The human checked the fever carefully, his large hands steady, almost gentle. The woman could not stop watching. Each act of care only deepened the mystery. When her child laughed weakly for the first time, she felt her heart break open. The sound was soft, but it filled the shuttle like light. She looked at the human, and for a brief moment she thought she saw the corner of his mouth curve, almost a smile. But it was gone too quickly. That night, when her child slept, she whispered across the quiet room, "I thought I sold myself to chains. Instead, I was given back my heart." The human looked at her, silent. His eyes were sharp, yet not unkind. Finally, he said, "You were never for sale." Her chest tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to let go of the fear, but the world had taught her too many lessons. Nothing came without a cost. She pulled her child close and whispered to herself, "If he is kind, then why does it scare me even more?" Outside, whispers spread through the colony. Some said the human was dangerous, others claimed he was hiding something, and in the shadows, men watched. Her return to her child had not gone unnoticed. Soon, others would come, those who believed no one escaped chains, no matter what a human said. But in that moment, as she held her child close, she dared to feel something new, something fragile, something terrifying. The first spark of hope. The alien woman thought the worst days of her life were over. Her child was alive, safe, and healing. She had food, warmth, and rest. The human gave her no chains, no pain, only silence and steady kindness. But peace never lasts long in a broken world. Whispers began spreading through the colony. Whispers of a human who defied the market. Whispers of a slave who had been freed. And whispers always grow teeth. One night, as the woman put her child to sleep, she heard footsteps outside the shuttle. Heavy, many. Her heart raced. She grabbed her child close and froze. The hatch banged with fists. A voice shouted, "Human! You have something that belongs to us." The woman's blood turned cold. She knew that voice. It was the overseer of the slave pits. The same man who once forced her to work until her hands bled. He had lost his grip on her the day she sold herself. Now, he wanted her back. The human stood slowly. His face was calm, but his eyes sharpened like blades. He looked at her once, then at the hatch. "Stay with your child," he said quietly. Her lips trembled. "They'll kill you." But he was already moving. The hatch opened. Outside, 3 aliens waited, their bodies broad and armed with knives and stun rods. The overseer sneered, his yellow teeth sharp. "You broke the law, human. She is ours. Hand her over, and maybe we let you live." The human stepped out, tall and silent. His shadow fell long in the dim light. "She is not yours," he said. His voice was steady, deep, like stone unbroken by storms. The overseer laughed. "Do you think you can fight us all? You are only one man." The human's eyes narrowed. "One is enough." The woman clutched her child, fear and wonder mixing in her chest. She wanted to scream, to beg him not to fight, but her voice stayed locked in her throat. The fight came quick. One alien rushed forward with a knife. The human moved like water, fast but controlled. He twisted the attacker's wrist, the blade falling uselessly to the ground, and struck with his fist. The alien collapsed, gasping. Another swung a stun rod. Sparks lit the night, but the human stepped aside, caught the rod, and drove his elbow into the attacker's chest. The crack of bone echoed. The overseer cursed, pulling his own weapon, but before he could strike, the human's hand grabbed him by the collar. In one motion, he slammed him against the wall. Dust fell from the cracked stone. The overseer's eyes went wide. For the first time, fear replaced his sneer. The human's voice was low, cold. "Come again, and you will not leave alive." Then he released him. The overseer stumbled, coughing, dragging his injured men away into the shadows. Silence filled the air. The woman stepped out slowly, holding her child close. She stared at the human, her chest tight with fear, but not of him, of what he had just done. You fought them for me," she whispered. He turned, his face calm as ever. "I told you, you are not property." Her heart twisted. She wanted to believe, she wanted to trust, but life had taught her that kindness always hides a price. "Why?" she asked again, her voice breaking. "Why risk your life for me? I am nothing." For a moment he said nothing. His gaze turned to the stars above, distant and cold. Then he answered, simple and firm, "No one is nothing." That night, he could not sleep. She lay awake, listening to her child's breathing, her eyes fixed on the man who had fought 3 without fear. Who was he? Why did he protect her? And why did she feel her fear slowly changing into something more dangerous, something close to trust? She remembered his words, "No one is nothing." Those words dug into her heart, deeper than chains, deeper than hunger. But shadows do not fade so easily. The overseer was not the only one who wanted her back. Others had seen the fight. Others whispered in darker places. She should never have been freed. The human is dangerous. He breaks the rules. We will take them both. The next day, as she washed her child's face with clean water, she noticed the human's knuckles were bruised. He had fought with bare hands, risking pain to protect her. She reached out without thinking, her fingers brushing his hand. He looked at her, silent. "You're hurt," she said softly. "It's nothing," he replied. But her chest ached. For the first time, she wanted to heal someone else, not just be healed. She whispered, "You are not nothing either." His eyes flickered just for a moment, like a spark of fire breaking through stone. But peace was already gone. The shadows of her past were rising again, stronger, hungrier. The overseer would not forgive his shame, and behind him stood others, masters, traders, lords of the market. The woman knew they would not stop until they dragged her and her child back into chains. She held her little one close, her eyes burning with both fear and defiance. And in her heart, a new question grew stronger every day. Was this human her savior, or the reason her past would finally catch her? The alien woman sat in silence that night. Her child slept peacefully for the first time in months, but her mind refused to rest. She replayed the fight again and again in her head, the way the human had stood against 3 men without fear, the way his voice had cut through the darkness like steel. "You are not property." She had lived her whole life as property. The words felt impossible, unreal, like fire in a world of ice. And yet, he had spoken them as if they were the only truth. At last she whispered across the quiet shuttle, "Why?" The human looked up from the device in his hand. His eyes were calm but heavy, as if carrying something deeper than she could see. "Why do you protect me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why risk your life? I am nothing. I was sold. I belong to no one." He studied her for a long moment, then set the device aside. Slowly, he stood and walked to the small window. Outside, the ruined colony stretched beneath the stars. His voice was low when he finally answered. "I protect you, because I failed to protect someone else." Her breath caught. She leaned forward, her eyes wide. "Someone else?" The human's shoulders tightened. His hand brushed over the small picture he always kept near. "I had a family once, a wife, a daughter. They were taken, sold. I fought, but..." His voice broke for the first time, raw with pain. "I was too late." Silence filled the room. The woman's heart ached. She had never seen him falter before. Always calm, always steady, like stone. But now, for the first time, she saw the cracks. He turned, his eyes sharp with old grief. "When I saw you in the market, holding your child, I saw them. I could not walk away. I will not make the same mistake twice." Her throat closed. Tears blurred her vision. She clutched her child tighter, her voice breaking. You see them in me?" He nodded once. "And that is why you will never wear chains again." The words struck her deeper than any wound. For years she had believed she was nothing but a slave, a shadow, a forgotten soul. But this human, this stranger, looked at her and saw not weakness, but something worth protecting. She whispered, "But you lost them. Why carry me and my child? Doesn't it hurt more?" His eyes softened, low, and his voice was firm. "It hurts every day, but saving you, maybe it means their memory was not in vain." Her tears fell freely now. She bowed her head, her voice shaking. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to," he said quietly. Days turned into weeks. Her child grew stronger. The fever broke, the cough faded. The small laughter returned, soft but alive. The woman watched with wonder as the human played with her child, showing small tricks, telling quiet stories. His rough hands, once used for fighting, now carefully fixed broken toys from scrap. Something grew inside her, a feeling both terrifying and new. It was not just gratitude. It was not just relief. It was something warmer, something that made her chest ache when he looked at her with those calm eyes. She had never known this feeling, not as a slave, not as a survivor, but now she could not deny it. And yet fear still clung to her. If the shadows came again, if they took him from her, what then? One evening, as the sun bled red over the ruins, she found him outside repairing part of the shuttle. She stood behind him holding her child's hand. Her voice was soft, almost afraid. "Why do you stay here? Why not leave this world behind?" He paused, setting his tools aside. He looked at her, his face unreadable for a long moment. Then he said, "Because you are here." Her heart skipped. "Me? You and your child," he said. "If I leave, who will protect you?" Her throat tightened. "But what if you are hurt? What if they come again?" His eyes met hers, steady as always. "Then I will fight, until I cannot." Her hands shook. The words were simple, but they carried a weight no promise had ever held. She whispered, "Why? Why do you care so much? This time his answer came like thunder. Because you are not property. You are family. The world seemed to stop. Her breath caught in her chest. Family. No one had ever spoken that word to her. She had been slave, tool, burden, but never family. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She dropped to her knees, clutching her child. Close, her body trembling with emotions she could not control. The human crouched, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. His touch was not heavy, not cruel. It was steady, warm, and real. She looked up at him through her tears. I don't understand. I sold myself. I was nothing. Why give me this? He held her gaze. Because no one should live in chains. Not you. Not your child. Not anyone. Her heart broke open. For the first time, she let herself believe his words. But even as warmth filled her chest, shadows lingered at the edge of her thoughts. She remembered the overseer's eyes, filled with rage. She remembered the whispers in the market. The danger had not passed. Yet, as she looked at the human, strong and steady before her, she felt something she had not dared to feel since her world first burned. Not just trust, not just hope, love. And that terrified her more than any chain ever had. The colony grew restless. The fight with the overseer had not been forgotten. Word spread quickly, too quickly. A human who refused to obey the market. A woman and her child who should have been in chains but now walked free. To the lords of the slave pits, this was more than insult. It was rebellion. And rebellion had to be crushed. One night, while the woman prepared a small meal and her child played with a toy the human had fixed, the sound of boots echoed outside. Dozens, not just a few. Torches burned against the darkness. Voices shouted, "Bring them out!" The woman and the child belonged to the market. "Kill the human if you must." Her blood ran cold. She clutched her child close, trembling. "They've come back. All of them." The human stood by the hatch, silent, watching the firelight flicker through the cracks. His face was calm, but his jaw tightened. He turned to her, his voice steady. "Stay behind me." "No," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "They will be into you. I'll kill you. You can't fight them all." He crouched, his eyes level with hers. For once, the stone in his gaze softened. "Listen to me. I lost my family once. I will not lose. You too. Whatever happens, remember." His hand touched her cheek, gentle. "You are free. You are family." Her chest burned with emotion. She wanted to scream, to beg him not to go, but the words died in her throat. The hatch burst open. The overseer stepped in, flanked by armed guards. His sneer was twisted with rage. "End it now, human. Give them back, and maybe we'll let you crawl away alive." The human stepped forward, his body between them and the woman. His voice was low, like thunder before a storm. "You will not touch them." The overseer laughed. "You think you can stop us all? One man against an army?" The human's eyes narrowed. "One man is enough." The fight exploded. Weapons clashed, sparks filled the air. The human moved like steel and fire, every strike sharp, every step controlled. He fought with the fury of a man who had lost everything once and refused to lose again. But there were too many. Blows struck him, blood stained his arm. He staggered, yet stood tall, shielding the woman and child behind him. The woman's heart broke as she watched. She wanted to hide, but she could not. She could not let him bleed alone. She pulled her child close, then stood at his side, fear burning into courage. "No," she cried. "You will not take us again." The guards hesitated. For the first time they saw not a slave, but a mother standing defiant. Her voice carried more power than chains, more power than law. The human's strength flared again. With a final strike, he drove the overseer to the ground. Dust rose as the man gasped, pinned beneath his grip. The human's voice was low, deadly. "This ends tonight. She is not property. Her child is not property. If you come again, you will not leave alive." The overseer's eyes, wide with fear, darted to the crowd, but none dared step forward. They saw the truth now. This was no ordinary man. This was a human who fought not for gold, not for power, but for love. Shame and fear forced them back. One by one, the guards dropped their weapons and fled into the night, leaving the overseer broken and trembling on the ground. The woman rushed to the human's side, her hands shaking. Blood marked his face, his arm, his chest. "You're hurt. Please sit. Let me help." He sank to his knees, breathing hard, but his eyes found hers. Even in pain, they held the same steady fire. "You are safe now," he whispered. Her tears poured. She touched his face, trembling. "You gave everything. For me. For my child. I thought I sold myself to chains, but you gave me freedom. You gave me more than I ever dreamed." Her child clung to them both, small arms wrapping around the human's neck. For the first time, the human smiled, faint, tired, but real. And in that moment, the woman knew the truth. She had not been bought. She had not been owned. She had been loved. The days that followed were different. The whispers in the colony changed. No longer just fear, no longer just shame. Now people spoke of the human who broke the chains. Some called him mad, others called him dangerous, but many, many called him hope. The woman no longer hid her face. She walked with her child, with the human at her side. Where there had once been shame, there was now pride. At night, when the stars burned above, she would sit close to him, her child asleep between them. Sometimes he spoke of his lost family, voice heavy with grief. Sometimes she spoke of her own past, voice trembling with pain. But together, their words slowly became lighter. Together, they began to dream of something new. Not chains, not fear, not survival alone, but family. And so the story of the woman who sold herself to save her child became something greater. She thought she had traded her freedom for her child's life. Instead, she found freedom for them both. She thought she had given herself to a human master. Instead, she found a human heart. She thought her story would end in darkness. Instead, it began with love. For in a galaxy filled with cruelty and chains, one truth remained unshaken. She had sold herself to save her child, but the human who bought her gave her love instead.